Okay, next up is a movie called Big Fan, and it stars comedian Patton Oswalt, best known as Mama's Boy Spence on the hit TV series King of Queens. And who would have thought he, of all people, would deliver such an amazing performance? And it's all the more strange because on the surface, it looks like he's just playing Spence again. He's short, chubby, mid-30s, lives with mommy, has a go-nowhere job. His mother here just seems to taunt him about his life, as all he seems to have is the New York Giants. Now Paul is pretty much a more tragic version of Spence, and he's just one of those guys which I hear every day while I'm at work, phone into the nationally syndicated primetime sports radio show hosted by Bob McCowan up here in Canada. And as the character of Paul does the same thing on his local radio show in New York, going verbally toe to toe with a hated Eagles fan, played by Michael Rappaport. Kevin Corrigan, who was the angry fight-hungry frat boy in Superbad, and is best known for his role in Grounded for Life, the hit TV series, plays Sal, Paul's best and only friend. And together they never miss a single game, enjoying it from the life of the tailgate of their cars. Big Fan is the most enticing film I've seen about fandom, and it's the directorial debut for Robert Siegel, who wrote the brilliant film known as The Wrestler last year. Now me, I'm a sports nut, almost to the max, but there comes a point where you gotta realize the fine line, and even I myself, when I was younger, was dangerous of getting to the point where the character of Paul was in this movie. But I've seen this guy before in the city I live in. Heck, I know this guy, which is why I was so captivated by this movie. They identify with their idols and live vicariously through them. Paul and Sal, that's all they have really. And one night they're both out eating pizza late, and they see the great Quantrell Bishop, the all-star quarterback for the New York Giants, who's on his way to leading them to a championship. They go so far as to follow him into some pretty nasty areas of town, right into a strip club. They approach the superstar and they praise him, and he soaks it in his own egotistical fashion, but he isn't really rude to them. But then they let slip that they've been following him for a while, so of course in Quantrell's head he screams "Narc." So he snaps and beats Paul within an inch of his life, requiring Paul to get surgery to stop bleeding from his brain. Quantrell is suspended, and Paul claims he can't remember. Can't or won't, of course, the detective is thinking. He sees Paul for what he is. Now, can Paul think that a man who he lives through tried to kill him? By living vicariously through him in his own fandom way, he is Quantrell Bishop. The character of Paul is looked at in a way where it shows the consequences of his obsession and embodiment of the team he loves. Most films portray fans as psychotic and murderous sporting fans, like the movie simply titled The Fan starring Robert De Niro back in 1996. But Paul isn't psychotic, really. Sure, his obsession is odd and almost scary at times, but psychotic? Hardly. Oswald shows us with his performance that if you tap into someone who's talented at what they do, in this case, him and his comedy, you never know what else they can do, and I really have high hopes for him as an actor in the future. It's a performance of near tragic heartbreak as a sports fan, and it's all the more sad because it's all too real, and it just makes it all the more intriguing to watch. And Oswald, I gotta say it again, is purely brilliant here. Now, Big Fan is definitely a movie that'll get you thinking. Any sports fan could relate. Why? Because if you were at a football game last week, you might have even been sitting next to this guy, or he was in front of you, or at any sporting event. You know this guy if you're any kind of sports fan, and you'll enjoy this movie because you can understand a lot of it. So, for all that, brilliant performance by Patton Oswalt. Big Fan gets 4.5 stars out of 5.